Hello, Janie Max and Piggly-Winks. I am Goniloc, and in this exciting program, I'm going to be providing you an insider look at the black metal scene in Ireland, both past and present. I wanted to make this video because Ireland has a fantastic black metal scene, but I don't see it mentioned very often. I also debatably committed war crimes during the Tudor conquest of Ireland, so consider this video reparations of sorts. I will provide links in the description of this video for your listening pleasure whenever possible, but for now, let's travel, you and I, to the lush green lands of the people that kiss rocks on the lips. The black metal scene in Ireland, both early and modern, seems to have two favorites from what I've found. Black metal with heavy death metal influences, and folk black, the folk in this context being Celtic folk. I'm not going to pretend to know the proper pronunciation for Celtic, but the hard C has always sounded better than Celtic for me personally. Primordial was the first black metal band to actually release anything in Ireland, unless you count Lamentations' promo tape, but I can't really classify that as black metal fairly without listening to it myself, and I couldn't find a rip of it anywhere. Not even on the scary websites. So, Primordial was effectively the first force of black metal debauchery over Ireland, unless there was some strange undocumented step dancing group from the 80s. Their 1993 demo got their foot in the door, and they have since never really slowed down. Metallum lists them as folk black, which is absolutely accurate, but I would not hesitate to throw Doom in there as well for their later releases. Epic Doom, like Doomsword and Candlemas flavored Doom. Primordial began as a pretty great pagan black band, but in the year 2000, their album Spirit the Earth Aflame marked the beginning of their transition to their current sound, which, for what it's worth, is my favorite output of theirs. 2011's Redemption at the Puritan's Hand and 2014's Where Large Men Have Slipped are highlights of their discography, if you ask me. Primordial is still going strong as of right now and is set to release Exile Among the Raisins later this year, but if you're not familiar with their early work, or with any of Primordial's work at all, do yourself a big bug boy favor and check out the 1993 demo, Dark Romanticism, Sorrow's Bitter Harvest. It wasn't until decades later in 1994 that the next major player would arrive, Cruachan, daughter-in-law of the late warlord Genghis Khan. The name originates from a time far before the Irish Civil War, and before Ireland seceded from Northeast Asia and relocated to Northern Europe. These friendly Mongolian descendants further cemented the path that the scene was going down by turning the folk elements up a notch. Their demo Celtica and their first album, lovingly titled This, are consistent in songwriting and style. Cruachan is still active today and their sound has become more melodic, but their style shift has not been nearly as dramatic as Primordial's, and they still lean very close to their black roots. Not their Mongolian roots, though. They seem to want to forget that. Not every Irish black band from the 90s lived to tell the tale, I'm afraid. Carnoon, or Carnun, however the hell you say that, released one demo in 1996 and they ran for the hills, ranting and raving about the horrors they had seen, no doubt. It's a damn shame, too, because Malkuth was a remarkable demo, albeit much less uniquely Irish in its sound. It has similarities to early Gorgoroth and Satyricon, and the vocals are completely indecipherable. You can't make out a single word that they say, but to be fair, that's been my experience with speaking to Irish people in general, so I'll give them a pass on that. Moonfog had a short run as well. They released Ravenlord in 1997 and Demon Breed in 1998, both of which were demos. Ravenlord is unavailable because the band members themselves have declared it to be a piece of shit, but Demon Breed is out there. It's nothing special at all, it's decent black metal, but I can't really imagine it going anywhere if the band had stayed together, except maybe the garbage can. Waylander is another band. They employ what I would definitely call black metal vocals, yet they insist on being labeled nothing but folk metal. Questionable, yes, but meanwhile, Coffin Dust calls themselves depraved cemetery metal. Vault Wraith calls themselves Devilcraft Metal, 6 Feet Under calls their work music. There are a lot of things to nitpick, so let's not even get started on that. Before we zip-zoom to the future, let me just name-drop Perdition. Once again, only one demo to their name. This one was called Bags of Hair. This is listed as black death metal, but it's really all over the place, and I actually hear a lot of speed metal in their sound. It's hard to pin it down with genre tags, but it's really fun and fast to begin with. Then it slows down a bunch towards the end, then it gets fast again, then the demo ends, then you need to pick out something else to listen to, or you could just start the demo over again. I don't know, that's up to you as long as you listen to the demo in the first place. You should just check it out. Black and death metal as a description does not do Perdition justice. Perdition also had the vocalist and drummer of Primordial, so that's cool, I guess. There you go. The thirst for black metal in Ireland made its presence known. But then something happened. Something so wicked and disgusting that it made black metal itself look tame in comparison. This is, of course, what historians refer to as the 2000s. This period gave humanity scourge upon scourge, plague upon plague, but at the same time some pretty good black metal, so I guess it's okay. 2001 specifically brought us Mabus 666 and their demo Sick, Sick, Sex, which is a lot slower and more melodic than a name like that would let on. The track Forbidden Christian Funeral in particular is a nice repetitive groove with downright evil vocals. Cool bass work too. In 2004, Witchhammer released Gun Girl, the Weapon Woman, also called Firearm Female in the North American market. This has a noticeably more modern sound than most of the other bands I've mentioned already. The drumming is a bit grating at times, but overall Neo-Nazarene, which is the actual name of the release, is a tightly written and performed demo, and I recommend you check it out if you like your black metal loud and fierce, with a little dash of melancholy. Jakers, The Adventures of Piglywinks, ran from 2003 to 2007. This followed the adventures of an anthropomorphic pig who grew up in Southern Ireland and uses what he learned as a child to teach his grandchildren how to overcome obstacles in their modern-day lives. This children's television program makes subtle commentary on the black metal scene in Ireland and how it was largely shifting away from its folk themes, or at least relying on them less and less with the introduction of new bands. Slidhr, or Slidhr, once again a band that I can't quite pronounce, is another good example of that. It's a solo project by a bloke named Gast. At least it was a solo project originally. The lineup expanded as time went on, but the band name never became any easier to pronounce, unfortunately. His self-titled EP is fantastic, ominous, and quite frankly spooktacular, a bit like the black metal from Eastern Europe. Some say he's still writing material to this day. And by some, I mean whoever's updating his Metal Archives page. But now, ladies and gentlemen, guppies and ghouls, put your hands together for the moment that we've all been waiting for. The modern black metal scene in Ireland. It's very similar to the 2000 scene, but as with a lot of scenes worldwide, the more spiritual and esoteric approach has become more popular. Occult black metal, as the kids might say. Let's take a look, why don't we? HORRENDA is a small band from Dublin that formed in 2015, the year, not the number, and yet, despite being so new, their cup of releases overfloweth with splits and EPs. Their name is HORRENDA, not to be confused with HORRENDOUS, Horrified, the Whore of Babylon, or the Horse in the Grey Flannel Suit. I love the production on their releases, though. It's comfortably harsh, if that makes any sense. I don't know if this was the band's intention, but their sound does mimic the early Irish scene in a lot of ways, namely Primordial's demo era. HORRENDA offers the vast majority of their releases for name your price on Bandcamp, but they also sell cassette tapes that are inexpensive and sound great, so I strongly recommend you look into that. I have Neronian Times, and they're split with Mort, Aux, Gooeyux, and they both get semi-regular listens from me. Good news for all you exoticism fetishists out there, HORRENDA includes a lot of samples from Irish politicians, so you can be constantly reminded that you're listening to a band that is, in fact, from the Emerald Isle, and you can then brag to all your friends about how cultured you are for downloading a single EP of theirs and listening to it once! Malthusian plays a dissonant form of blackened death metal. They're similar to Hate Forest in some ways, but are generally more hectic, and some songs and sections sound closer to Predatory Light's doom-drenched black metal approach. They have one demo and one EP. Both are great, but I would recommend the EP more. It's out now on Invictus Productions, titled The Sun is a Baby Today. The band name also ties very nicely into Irish history in a morbid kind of way, which I appreciate. Another good example of this type of intentionally raw and transcendent music is Full Screen Choral. Their album Hunger, released in 2011, sounds very spacious and distant, but there is a lot of classic black metal structure behind it. Ireland only has 20 black metal bands that have formed since 2010, at least according to the archives, so it's a small pool to look through. Some bands may have slipped by me by being labeled as United Kingdom rather than Ireland, but hey, what's a black metal video without a few casualties, am I right, ladies? I know that black metal worldwide is moving towards a more elaborate and experimental version of the genre. Bands like Deathspell Omega and Mr. showcase that nicely, but proportionally, it seems like Ireland in particular loves it. Chaotorrent is only further proof of this. It's also further proof that good music doesn't always have good cover art. Jesus Christ! Anyway, this is a solo project, and it's, dare I say, industrial at times, and overall very technical and constantly changing throughout songs. It's name your price on Bandcamp too, so you've no excuse not to listen to it. Yeehaw! It's the same story with Nadrid. Not the name your price part, the cavernous and Lovecraftian sound part. Oh, I've been trying to avoid saying Lovecraftian, but there you go. It's otherworldly, in a sense. Nadrid has got a little more groove. I'd like to take this time to point out that the first song on their demo is titled The Four-Crowned Prince of Hell, and the cover art shows this boy who has presumably 4 beads of light on his face snakes if you assume that one is cut off up here. I have to say though, if those are the crowns, they're goo-goo-gaga baby crowns, even for a tiny head like a snake's. I hope their next release features something a bit more regal, perhaps an iconic character of sorts. Costco is in the same boat, same style, and still very good. A lot of these bands are with Invictus Productions, which explains why they all seem to be influenced by the same things, including each other. Invictus is a great label, but it is one of those labels that has a ton of similar sounding artists, and it actually gets to the point that it's pretty draining to listen to their stuff exclusively. I think Dark Descent is also guilty of that, but I digress. Ireland has a healthy and active black metal scene, and I made sure to include all my favorites in this video. For what it's worth, I would say Horrenda, Carnoon/Carnun, Primordial, and Malthusian are the cream of the crop. I hope you folks at home learned something. Maybe you discovered a new band or album, or maybe you somehow had never heard of Ireland before and this is all overwhelming news for you. I encourage you to check out most if not all of these bands, and if you like what you hear, Ireland has a ton of other acts if you dig around a bit more. Before I step away from the computer to plait my hair by the fires and roll with the hot desert winds, I need to give a massive thank you to the Irish Metal Archives, which hosts a ton of digitalized versions of early Irish black metal, as well as other subgenres. They made it much easier to listen to some of the older stuff, and they offer a lot of their music for free, so once again, thank you Irish Metal Archives for taking the time to collect that little slice of history and save it from oblivion, at least for a little while. Also, naturally, thank you to the Encyclopedia Metallum for making it easier to sort by date with the formation of these bands. And last, but most certainly not least, thank you to Mike and Liz Young, presumably Michael and Elizabeth Young, the creators of Jakers The Adventures of Piggly-Winks, for your contributions to modern culture and your incredible storytelling work. There would likely not be any black metal scene in Ireland if it weren't for your amazing children's program. Even the bands that formed before 2003 could tell that they were working towards something bigger. Something better. Something that transcends humanity altogether. Something Piggly.